Hey guys, what's up? No screen share today. It's super hot in Greece. I'm literally sweating like crazy. I don't think you want to be watching that. Jumping straight into this, we're going to be going into the Saturday market breakdown. I did do a quick scan yesterday, but we're going to go over it again because you wouldn't be able to really understand everything from yesterday. So essentially going with the DXY, we have actually pulled back on here. Now this is a very interesting one because what we can see here is that we responded to this level that we always understood was possible, right? To this level, and then what did we do down here? We created this like mini double bottom, which didn't entirely fill, but I believe it's a part of the whole entire sequence. Remember, there's more than enough done over here, and the nice thing about this now is that essentially we've completed on this, so we just need to now see a follow through. Ideally, really and truly, either two ways. We either see something shape up in here and it drops in, and we get something in this area and it goes, and then we have enough to manage into this area, which is basically what I'm going to be looking at to see if we can manage into that area. If that's the case, then that would be great. Otherwise, what I'm more so interested in to see is if we continuously go impulsive, then we create something deliberate above here. Could that be more than enough to manage to up here? Absolutely. So that's basically what I'm looking at. But in terms of sequence, that wouldn't be your most regular sort of sequence, especially if I zoom out to the daily. You don't see price go like that, a small continuation, it goes again. Most likely we might see something a little bit more weighted on. We just need to be patient with that. So DXY, it is looking good. Obviously we didn't tap into those lows there. It's not always necessarily the case. We don't have to tap into the low. We've done more than enough from a lower time frame perspective over here, and then moving into the higher time frame, that daily candle was pretty nice. And if we look how the weekly ended, you can see that in fact it's even nicer, because what you can see is we had the wick here, we actually wick through it, rejected, and now we're trading all the way back up here. So even though this is the range, essentially this section here is the range, we still can see this go from an A to B, and then if we can manage that, we can potentially go higher, and then we're going to see the US related pairs move equally as nice. JP225. Okay, so JP225 is a bit of a tricky one because I'm looking at potential longs on a varied amount of yen pairs, but the JP225 can still go sideways while these yen pairs go long, right? This has been very corrective during the majority of April, May, and coming into June. So we can't really anticipate that this is going to be impulsive now. This can still just kind of do this and then suddenly make its way up, creating something like that, being very irregular in terms of corrective, and then, you know, how would it really respond? So I'm not really looking for an entry on the JP225 just yet, but I will be keeping it on watch just for, you know, personal preference. S&P 500, usually like to cover those all three together. S&P 500 is an interesting one. With the S&P 500, what I'm going to be looking at to see is if we do get rejection from this area. Now, it is notoriously good for a long pair. Right now, it does look like there could be the potential of a expanding continuation, but we are in the reversal territory. So in terms of shorts, this was one of the reasons why I actually opted out of getting out of my GJ position, which I'll just quickly briefly show you. The GJ position was over here, so I got out of this position. Now, this does have upside potential, but given how price was shaping up over here, I just wasn't really too interested in this pair as much. Obviously, I writ it off a bit too early, I'll be honest with you, but I didn't want to put too much risk on the account only because of where I'm positioned on the account that I'm using, right? If I was to take too much risk, then I'll be over risking on my portfolio, and I just wouldn't want to do that. So I decided to opt out of this trade, right? And then re-enter on the US 30. Now, some people might think, okay, that's a bit of a difficult place to really be looking at it, but it's always been a bit of complex price action, because the way I'm seeing it is the US 500 is leading the majority of indices as well as the US related pairs, and this is pretty good for shorts. Now, even if the S&P 500 goes off ever so slightly, we could see the US 30 pretty much drop quite aggressively. So looking at it from a weekly perspective, This doesn't necessarily look like it could go bullish just yet. Obviously, we do have that long wick over here, which is completely fine. We did do a majority of the filling as well. If I just remove this green, we did pretty much fill that, and we ended with a very good indecision candle. Now, looking at it on the daily, what we can see over here is that, yeah, we pulled back, we got corrective, and then we retested this previous structure. And how did we do it? Well, we did it with a bit of structure, which I did like. So what I did like about this is that we did come in with a structure over here, where we essentially had a 1, 2. This pretty much is a second section. So if this becomes corrective and then comes back up, I would understand to evolve that, look at it like that. Then what happens is this could come into here and then make its way back up there and then go, right? That's always a possibility that we have to be aware of. But we'll deal with that when it comes. In terms of the entry that I opted out for, I'll quickly just show you that. So just so you understand this, we have the retest here. We have the 1, 2, 3. This is kind of more of an M star in my eyes, but obviously we just wick through the retest. We kind of just tapped into these areas where it's like the point of sale, where we just, at this point here, is where we just really just really started selling off. And then on the 1 hour, we also had this section here where you can see here where we had the mini override, right? So despite everything to the left of the retest, let's say the retest has been tested, we've wicked through it, we've come back in, it has left quite a large wick, especially on the 4 hour, you can see a little bit more clear. So there is the risk of that being filled, right? But then when I look at it on the 15-minute, I can see that there's very deliberate price action here where, okay, we've actually retraced fully on that candle. We've pulled back in. This looks very deliberate. Are we creating a continuation pattern here? Now, this is more on the higher risk side, but the great thing about it is, as I got out of my GJ position, I was able to walk away with 1%. So I was able to use that 1% in a risk for this trade, which I was more than happy to do, because then I'm not actually, even if I was to take a loss on the trade, I would end up with break even regardless, right? And looking at the way the GJ was moving, it was possible that I could have taken a break even regardless anyway. So I was more than happy to kind of make that swap over. And then when I evaluated it on the 15, I saw that, okay, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 candles. And then I saw, okay, if we can come back into this area here, then I'll be looking for shorts, right? So then I refined it on the 5. As I refined on the 5, we could see that we had the high here, we had the near miss, the multiple near miss to this miss, we correctively, and then what did we do? We came back up. Now, I do like to just use a quick splash of a line chart. Now, you need to be careful with this because it's not always necessarily the case, but there was the element of a squeeze into it as well. And then I swapped over to back to this, and I was just kind of like, okay, fine. So just trying to kind of make sense of the mess. We're still just kind of getting into that, so we're squeezing into it. And then what happened was we came in, we tapped above, and we retraced straight back in. The moment that retrace happened is when I looked to get entered. So then I literally positioned myself literally as the candle closed, and stop loss was above. It was roughly around about 72 pips, and I was in that. So I'm still in the trade. As soon as it dropped for around about 2%, I just moved to break even, went to all dogs. It is what it is. As I came back, it was hovering around here. Was I really concerned? Not really, because I always knew the risk. But the great thing about it is I already had a percent locked in from GJ, and this was at break even now. So if this was even to take me out, I'd still walk away with a small profit before the end of the week. So I was quite happy with that. And then I was monitoring this to see how it was moving closer to market close. And then I was looking to close the position when it was roughly around about here for market close. It was roughly around about here. And then I realized, okay, hang on a second, we're not really going anywhere. And then as the market was closing around about 2.5, I just locked in about halfway, around about 1%. And then just let it do its thing. So that was basically the thought process around US30. I think it was a really good decision on my behalf to take that. It's not the easiest structure to decipher, and we're not really taking our typical structure because we're trading US30. Now, there's always the liquidity question that a lot of people do ask, like, okay, you're taking a trade roughly around about 6 o'clock UK time. There's not really a huge amount of momentum. Well, I would argue that there is, because, you know, many times if you go back and you look at it, it's not like the market flatlines. Sometimes you see with a lot of markets that when it comes to around about 7, 8, 9 o'clock, it just starts to squeeze like this before it just kind of drops before the evening, and then the next day it starts to create structure, right? Whereas with this particular pair, it's not very common for that to happen. When it does squeeze, is roughly between your Asian session. Asian session tends to really be a bit of a squeeze. You can see it over here. Every squeeze you look at over here, there's probably another squeeze. Yep, over there, there's probably another squeeze. Yep, and you can see that the squeezes tend to be roughly around about Asian session, but during what's it called? Late New York, UK session, London session, there's always volume there. It's just, you need to be mindful. Like you can see over here on this candle here, that was around about 7 o'clock. Where did that momentum kick in from 7 o'clock, right? So that's why I would say that, understanding that, because I did do a data collection on this. I think I did it around about a few months ago. It might be on YouTube. If it's not, I'll probably make a new one. But studying these time periods as well just makes you know when good hours to be trading particular pairs. But before I took that, I did go back and reference and look at other prices just to see that if I was going to take the position, would it be sensible or not. And overall, when I added up the confluences, I looked at the nature of things, I especially zoomed out, and then I looked at the bigger picture. I then understood that actually positioning over here would be very strategic and very smart. So I was more than happy. So I closed off the GJ, took the position, and I kind of took that forward. So that basically covers US 30. Now jumping straight into the pairs for the week. So Aussie CAD's basically in a range. I'm basically looking to play this range to the upside. I just need to wait and see in anticipation. Now it's been very impulsive on the way down, and we are at this value area here, but this doesn't look like my typical rejection just yet, even though we do have the M star and we've correctively come in and tapped to it. If we do get it, like I said, it's a very neutral area right now, but if we do get a clear follow through to the downside, and for some reason we're down here and we can get something clear and deliberate, then at that point there I might consider a position to trade into the next low. Otherwise, if we just correctively kind of squeeze out of this and then suddenly we just impulse back up and then we start creating deliberate price action, at that point there I can look to go long. So that's basically it really. It's just either I just need to wait for the market to come to me. So in terms of this one, it's a very difficult one, but I'll definitely be putting it on watch because of the overall completion of this. I think this was it was more so a missed trade in a sense. I think I could have easily deciphered this trade and been able to capitalize on it. It's just I don't think I had it on watch, or if I did, I just wasn't sharp enough with it, because from a daily perspective, that is as clear as day. That's something that 100% should have taken advantage of, but it is what it is. Aussie Swiss, I'm not really going to be looking for a trade on this. Now, you did have that little bit of continuation there. It is decent, and it does look like it is dropping off, but it's not my go-to pair comparing to what else we have on watch. Aussie New Zealand. Aussie New Zealand is a interesting one. So we broke above. This is the studies of the mass psychology that I've been collecting, and this is perfect because now I'm just basically waiting for a push back in, a solid push back in, and then followed by continuation. So what I want to see here is just a push and a clear deliberate continuation pattern shape up. Now, Aussie New Zealand can sometimes be a bit tricky in these situations because I've seen these multiple times pull back, but that's why I wouldn't opt in for the reduced risk. I would only look for the risk entry on this particular flag, only because I understand this pair a little bit more than others in the sense of where I'm taking the position. So to avoid myself taking a loss, I will wait for some deliberate price action. Doesn't have to necessarily be the 1 hour, could be 15, but yeah, that's basically it. So I'm looking for a push down back under this range, and then looking to play the range to fill the wick, which will come down here. And I think that just takes a little bit of time and patience, but we'll wait and see. Otherwise, if we do start pushing to the upside, which is also very possible, I'll just be looking for a clear, deliberate push, followed by the next continuation, however it shapes up, and I'll be looking to get positioned on that. Obviously, that's a little bit too steep, but you get the idea. The general idea is just a push up continuation and we go, and then see if I can get involved on it. Just zoom out for a second so you can see that we are trading in the middle of nowhere, kind of. Where's our target zone? And I think a great tip that was passed over, or observation is basically when you don't have something to do, you can just take that to there, and you can see that the move is basically complete. It hasn't fully completed yet, but it is basically complete. So there could be an easy range play to the low that then this reverses back to the upside, or we could basically reverse from here and just make our way back up, and then we'd look at our first target zone is here because of the uncertainty of what could happen, and we might just do something like that, and then, you know, I mean, anything can happen in here, but more so we could create some structure and it just develops into something. So we just have to wait and see how that shapes up, but more so just keeping it very, very simple. There's no point over forecasting and worrying about stuff. We need to see how price gets there. We just need to wait and see how this shapes up. So Aussie New Zealand's definitely one that I will consider, but I don't think it will make it to watch personally. Aussie US dollar is the next one. I like Aussie US dollar mainly because if you look at it from a weekly perspective, you can see that we are getting clear follow through now. That weekly candle is actually really, really nice for the shorts. With the DXY pulling to the upside, it could be really nice as well. We can see that previously we did get similar candles, but this one's a huge candle. It's actually engulfed all of that price action to the left, and we've broken that low. So now I'm looking for clear, deliberate price action. That one is certainly coming on watch this week. I'm going to be looking for a 1 hour continuation. It doesn't necessarily have to come back to this area, but if it's something as simple as that, you know, and let's just say we get something like that, that would be great, right? I would look for clear continuation. I'm not looking for subjectivity on this pattern at all. Like, I want to see clear, deliberate price action giving me exactly what I need in order for me to get involved. So like I said, I'm going to be patient with this one. I'm not going to be jumping into it just because something shapes up. I want to actually see clear, deliberate price action shape up, and then I'll get involved on that. That's just to demonstrate structure. It's not going to look like that. It could be anything, but it's just to demonstrate the area that I'm looking at it in. Here is like the line in the sand, and then anywhere below. And that line literally through or below, that's where I'm at. If it's above it, I'll probably have to really reconsider it and match up variables, but it wouldn't necessarily be the worst thing. It's just, this could still be a range to move to the upside, you know, with the near miss and everything involved, but more so this looks like it's deliberate to go to the downside now, and I think getting positioned on this would be phenomenal. So Aussie US dollar. Aussie yen, I'm still actually looking for longs. I'll be honest with you, I'm not really convinced on the short just yet. I think this bit of price is just a bit of a trap right now. I think what we need to see is something like that, something like this, and then right now we're just kind of dipping, and then we're just going to spike up, and then, you know, we just kind of get our way there. It does these things time and time again. You can see here, like, it just convinces you up, and then boom, it just goes back up. There could be entries in there, but more than likely we'd have to be very, very sharp for them. If this starts to impulse up, we'd really be patient and just wait, and then you might get your continuation up here, and then and then you'd basically play in that. In terms of like a risk reward, I think with 10 it's pretty large anyway. On the contrary, it's not. Let's just say you got in here somewhere, and yeah, 15, I'd say a little bit more, to be honest. I'd go about 25 on this. 25 sounds about right. Even if I went more, I wouldn't really be too concerned. Yeah, you got about 5% into that high, so, you know, it's pretty decent. And then obviously we're not just looking at the high, we're looking at to break above and keep going, so there's lots of potential and room there. Out of the yen pairs right now, I don't think Aussie yen is my favorited one, but just bearing that in mind that there is some potential on the board there. It's just, where am I drawing my line in the sand? So I'm going to be patient with that. For shorts, you'd have to see something very deliberate. You'd have to see a very clear push through continuation, and then we're going like that. But even at that point there, you'd be on your A game with a position like that, just because we could just reverse, and then this could just be a part of, you know, something like that, which hasn't even shaped up yet. So that's basically it for Aussie yen. Okay, so we have CAD Swiss. CAD Swiss trade actually played out really well. I was going to take this trade, but I kind of just shadow traded it because I was doing a lot of studying and stuff, and I wasn't really interested in taking it. But just looking back on it, it does look quite interesting. So we can see that we had the scoop, we tapped in, this was the range, we were playing the range from here to here. because we had the override, so we understood the near miss was there. So we thought if we come back down into these areas and then we pull back up to fill that, we could potentially go long. But instead what happened is we just impulsed and smashed through it. I don't think I would have been in for the full 16%. I think as we got around about 8%, 7% would have probably been my line in the sand. I would have come out for 7. Truthfully, I don't think I would have survived that pullback. So yeah, it's really nice because even it walked away with 7. There was possibly re-entries and stuff, but wow, look at that trade, phenomenal. This kind of actually reminds me a little bit of the US 30 trade that I was covering earlier, only because you can see here that what actually happened was, instead of a retest, we came in and we just tested the high of this section, and then we rejected. The difference is obviously we don't have a massive 4-hour and 1-hour wick, but we pushed away, clear deliberate price action. You can see that's visible on the 4, and then we refined it on the 1. And then what you can see here is that we had the double top, the 2 touch, and then it developed into a 3, but the protection was there, so you'd be happy to survive through that. Even if this was to develop and kind of squeeze a little bit further, you still got extra room on that. So yeah, overall this was a really nice trade. This was really cool. And then we pushed through, and you had the mini override in there as well. There's just so many layers to this trade that I really liked, because you could have refined it in so many ways. And there were so many different ways you could have taken this position, which was also equally as nice, because yeah, truthfully, at ultimate refinement I could have probably walked away, yeah, but 12%, maybe not 12 actually. If that went to about 12 and that pulled back for 10, oh yeah, 10%, that would have been a 10% trade. I would have been out sooner. But I am essentially rounding those numbers up, and I think that was a really good point that Abdu mentioned, is just be conscious about your numbers as well. Like, sometimes rounding them up is a psychological number that we play with in our minds, where 10, 5, 3, all these numbers, you know, we give them a certain level of power when we don't necessarily need to. But obviously I'm looking at it more so in maths, like, you know, adding these numbers up to make strategic numbers. But yeah, definitely gravitated to 10 pretty quickly. Why not 11? You know, and then those are really interesting questions, is why did I go to 10 and not 11? So yeah, anyway, I didn't look at structure, I looked at the number first. So it was just a great, interesting thing to kind of just observe there. Just going over CAD Swiss. To be fair, I don't trade CAD Swiss much, but this doesn't look too bad, really and truly. That doesn't look too bad at all. If that shaped up and you took it, I wouldn't be mad, but the thing is, I don't know about spreads and swaps. You need to know about those things when you're trading with that particular broker, because I'm pretty sure you're going to need large, I don't know. It doesn't really move much sometimes. I wouldn't be surprised if this turned into, hang on a second. Sorry guys, had to literally pause it there because the dogs were barking. But yeah, as I was saying with CAD Swiss, it's not really those typical ones. You know, this could really just, it could play its toll on you, man. Like, I've seen it too many times where, you know, you get into a position like that, suddenly it shapes up, and then boom, turns into like some really I mean, don't get me wrong, you can capitalize on that for sure, but this is the 4 hours, so you would be in this trade for always the wrong tool there. Let's say you get involved in the trade. Yeah, you could be in this trade for like 15 days for 140 pips. You get in with a, call it a 20 pip stop loss. You know, you'd wait roughly around about, or over a week, just to make around about 6-7%, which isn't necessarily the worst thing, but then at the same time it's not the best. Whereas had you got into this position, you know, there's multiple entries there, but let's say had you got into that one, you know, you'd 190 pips over 6 days, right? This is not always necessarily the case, but let's just say you got in here somewhere. Yeah, you could get in with around about 15. And you know, these are not the trades that always shape up on this pair as well. And yeah, for sure you would have really 12. Yeah, I would have walked away with 10. Actually, even at that point, if you're going to do that, you might as well walk away with 12, but you'd leave it at 8 to be honest, and just be on the safe side and let that commit. But yeah, 10% would have been really the line in the sand for me there, because as soon as I hit 10 I would have been super aggressive at 10. But even so, 6 days for 10% is not bad compared to maybe sitting in the market for. That's the thing with CAD Swiss, you just don't know, because it can, sometimes it can look phenomenal and it can be moving and then create nice continuation, and then suddenly just becomes corrective, and then over this period you get into a position for a long, you get taken out, and then it just goes sideways, and then let's say you even get into a position down here, between here to here, that's 170 pips, pulls back all the way to 15, and then over the course, yeah, you're looking at roughly around 34 days for about 200 and something pips. I mean, it's not terrible. It's one of those ones where I think the short sequences are good. You know, currently this run is similar to this run. So the way I see it is, at what point will this get very corrective, right? And right now we're in kind of a run of a momentum to the downside. This can easily make its way back down here. We're still in that momentum filled run. Now I know this isn't a tool that we use that much, but just kind of looking at that, it is that larger flag territory as well, but I'll just be mindful. This could still shape up, be something small, turn into something larger, but just something to be mindful of. CAD-Yen for the long is what I'm looking at. I just don't know just yet. I'm gonna put this ray line on here and I'll just wait. It does look like, as we're seeing with a few other pairs, this could just be doing that, tap into this low, and then we're off from there. That's basically what I would really want to wait for at this point, but it is looking interesting for a continuation. It's just way too large right now for me to entertain that, so I'm going to just wait for the simple fact of tap into those lows and then potentially get a push up. Even over here it's a bit higher risk, but because if you take it, the odds are, let's say you get something like that, and even at that point there it's broken through ever so slightly, it just opens up the door for something like that. So you may just walk away with a break even, that's the thing, and then this could develop into a few other things that, you know, we're not aware of, and then it comes back down here and then goes, and then what happens is this becomes your middle section. I don't think this is the typical game plan, but it's just something to be aware of, and then you get your middle section in there, and then that's the gameplay, and then you take the long from there. But then that correct is so large, it just keeps dragging your attention lower and lower. So I'm just pretty sure that we could go long from here, get continuation up here, and we just go. CAD-Yen's a little bit of a more difficult one, but I think in terms of the long position, it's a little bit more clear, because once we're clear of these highs, we have a clear run back to fill that wick. So, you know, from an A to B perspective, that's nice, and I would set an alert on that just to be more aware of when we're breaking that, so that then I can see that if we get deliberate price action above, depending on how we reached it, we could potentially look to go long. Swiss yen's not my area of interest, because we're going to be trading into all-time highs again, and when we trade into all-time highs, it's very difficult to set price targets. We would essentially be having to look at something like this, where I'd basically just take that to that and then basically call it around about this area to this area here, and then that basically becomes my sort of area of interest. So if we get a continuation here, I'm not going to be taking this, but if we get a continuation here and that shapes up, you would be taking it into those areas there, where, yeah, it's not even worth sizing up a risk reward at this point, but you'd basically be taking that continuation, which looks pretty decent, into these areas. But it's not typically something I like to do when we don't have full certainty around a certain pair, is taking a long at a high, right? Especially at all-time high. I think it's very, very risky. Even when you're taking something like the S&P 500, you just don't want to be taking the trade here. You'd rather take the trade inside on the way to these areas and then play in anticipation for it to go, but it is what it is. Okay, so Euro Aussie is actually quite nice. There is something about this pair that really does spark out to me. Now I'm more interested in this than the one just before it. Now, they're both equally as interesting, where you have this point and this point, but I think this point could be the trap. I think that could be the trap, but it's possible because we basically retest the back end of that, play this as the override, and that would be basically your most cleanest way to look at it, right? Is you'd basically see it here, this would go up, this would come back in, it would give you an entry, and that would be as clean as day, right? But more so, I wouldn't be surprised if we took this one and we came up here, and then this just stretched, and we tapped into these areas, then rejected and gave an entry here, then we pushed in and got something maybe there. But that would be more so what I'm interested in. But this is definitely the main structure, because you'd basically look at it for what it is, and you can see it's just a 1, 2, 3. But if we're evolving that and looking at it internally, then it's a different situation. But yeah, overall, that's the gameplay. You just want to see a clear push up, impulsive action back down, continuation, and we're going short. So that one's definitely coming on watch for next week. Pink EuroCAD. So I already did this one. It was probably the one that I liked the most out of everything on my watch list, because it was the only forecast that actually genuinely shaped up the way that I forecasted it by the end of the week. So back to the daily, sorry. We tapped into 1, 2, 3, we pushed up, we had the M star, we pushed up. Now we did leave these bullish wicks, but it was kind of more so in terms of a pin bar. Seeing through it, we did fill it and come back in, and it was still bullish. On the weekly perspective, you can see that we've clearly just made this weird wick through, come back in, where there is the potential that we do something like that, where we get the next candle, it wicks up and then becomes bearish. That's fine as well. On the daily, you can see that we've kind of already done that, in a sense where we've had the wick, we've had the wick, we've had the wick. It's failing to commit to the upside. There's a lot of resistance there, and now price is just pushed to the downside. Now that we're seeing that we're coming into these lows, right, and this is where the main attention is coming in, those lows, but we're also aware that where did we start on this correction, and it was at this point here, right? So if this is deliberate enough, and it turns into something deliberate enough, then we could look to entertain it for sure. I wouldn't worry about that one as much. Just be aware that, you know, this could really get complicated, because it is in an area where price could move higher. But more so, what do we have? Well, we're failing to commit to the upside. We're now testing the lower end of things, and now we're coming in with deliberate price action. This is subjective, so I wouldn't look at that as a 1, 2, 3. I'd take this as my first touch, I'd take that as my second. There's nice spacing between it as well, that architecture there as well. And then we're coming in, we're going to tap into this section here, look for the push down, continuation, and we go. If there's a hover on this and the continuation is there, fair enough. And then if it's outside, it's still great, because I can manage into the next lows. But more so, keeping it very simple, I just want to see clear structure. If we get a middle section in here, that's even better. If we come up with an impulse correction continuation into that area and then reject, that's even better as well. So there's variations to this, layers and layers of what I am interested in, but more so, I just want to see how price develops and then plays. But EuroCAD's definitely one that I'm going to be keeping an eye on next week. Euro Swiss, yeah, it's kind of like CAD Swiss in the sense where it's interesting because we've rejected from here, but we are in a run of momentum, and these can be pretty good. It's not one of my typical pairs again. I think from the Forex pairs, I just don't trade the Swiss pairs that much. I did study them a fair amount. Even when I studied them, it just didn't feel like something that I'm very interested in, but there is trades in there for sure. If you did get something like that and you take it as a 2-touch, fair enough. Like I said, it's not the go-to for me. I'd rather wait for something else. So I'm going to leave Euro Swiss alone. But from a high time frame perspective, you'd basically be taking the accumulation of the trade in here to then go short and then basically play that. I wouldn't be surprised if there is a few phenomenal trades that do shape up, but at the end of the day, it's not the go-to. Euro GBP, or Euro GBP, let's have a little look at that. So Euro GBP is tapped into this low here, on the weekly, it's looking very bearish. Look how wicky it is as well. Yeah, I mean, that little bit of price here is just not, it's not ready for me. It feels like one of those pairs that even though it's in the area, I'm just going to leave it alone. It's a tag out, tag in, tag out, tag in, tag out situation where how we've got there isn't it doesn't pique my interest really, because it's basically giving me short vibes rather than long vibes, and these are the areas where you want to see serious push up, continuation, and we go. But right now what we're technically seeing is accumulation here for this to potentially go short, and then you get a complex structure in there where it's like that, and then it just kind of shorts again, and you're stuck in a trade. But I'm not interested in EG as much at this point. If we do start to reverse, then there will be a clear sequence and I could probably take advantage of that. I mean, look, it is one of those pairs where it can just really go, like especially on the upside, but I'm not interested in just one trade that makes it all. I'm interested in experiencing it, managing it. There's so many layers towards getting into a good quality trade that I think just rushing into a trade when price hits these areas, it's not always necessarily the case. So moving on, Euro New Zealand. Euro New Zealand is a perfect example actually of what I was just saying, is where this one's actually giving you a little bit more, where what have we actually done? We've squeezed into it, and here's the abundance of sequence. So yeah, so essentially what you can see here is we've squeezed and now we're pushing out. We just want to see deliberate price action for a continuation to the upside. I would probably wait for a little bit more for push. There might be a continuation or whatever in there, but I would wait for this, and then I'd wait for maybe an hourly flag. So I'll just move over to the hourly. I'll wait for an hourly flag now. There could be something shaping up as we speak in here, which isn't necessarily the worst position in the world, because you'd possibly be able to manage into that point there. Yeah, you would be, and then you'd be cautious. Obviously that's the thing when you're trading against this corrective channel, is there's all these little points, but more so my main interest would be around about there, and then I'd basically be looking to take it from here to here. Let's just size this up. So if I go from here, let me see that. Yeah, so I'll basically be looking at something on this line here where we create continuation. Probably won't be so clean, but we'll have to wait and see. Continuation like that, and then we look to go long. So I will put that on a second watch, have a little look tonight, and then wrap it up in my SMB. EU looking good as well. EU actually looks stunning in terms of a sequential point of view. Let me just clear these off. So if we just kind of isolate this for what it is, we can see that price tapped into this area, scooped up. It actually formed a internal 1, 2, 3, and then this was evolved, and now we're basically trading inside this internal, expanding. We then completed on the daily where we retraced, but we couldn't refine it. We'd see it on the 4. We pushed down, larger correction. So obviously straight away for me this is written off. I would write that off, just because yeah, we're in the right area, but it's just a very difficult trade to decipher. A lot could happen. I would more so be interested in seeing if we come back up to these areas, but we didn't, and then NFP came and we just sold. It is what it is. You can't do much about it. Now we just have to basically trade with the data that we have, and in terms of that is that high was broken, so this has become the new high. In terms of what this could develop into, there's a lot of variations. This could be a larger version of something as well, right? We just, at this point right now, we just don't know for sure, but can we trade into those lows, right? And then potentially have that run continue, because as we're seeing with Aussie US dollar, you're seeing this on the daily as well. Look at that daily candle, right? I wouldn't be surprised if this retraced. I'll be honest with you. It's one of those ones where so many people are looking at this right now. it's either gonna continue or it's just gonna solid retrace, right? That candle is absolutely stunning though. Like, you don't see candles like this often, but when you do, there's a lot of attention around it. And the last time we saw it, and it's very obvious, right? You see that there, and you can see it here, right? Look at that, right? The momentum is kicked in, and we could just get a solid follow through. So something similar in a smaller light, but this one was more coming from a similar sort of area as well, and it's done a similar thing. But anyway, that was above, and then it just kind of followed through, but it didn't give it the full commitment that you would have probably had in your mind where you thought about it. But this is definitely coming to the downside. There could be a small pullback in there for sure, which I'll be definitely more aware of. So what we're going to be looking at here on the 1 hour to take advantage of this is we want to be aware of that white ray line low. But if we start pulling back for any reason and we start creating some structure, we could then probably get involved with something, right? I wouldn't be looking for a V shape here. I'd be looking more so for some structure. I wouldn't over forecast on this as well, because it could turn into so many different structures, and I don't care much for that expanding. I'm interested to see if we can play this larger range now without having to come back up here. Now this does look like accumulation to go to the upside. It's very large, but clear and deliberate. We create something here, boom, we're through here, we'll get something larger, and then the sequence is just going, right? We don't know yet, but EU is definitely one that I think if you're going to be having a pair on watch, EU and AU are definitely ones that you want to be eyeing up right now. We haven't gone into the other ones yet, but we're finally at that point with the DXY where we may actually see a really solid level of momentum. Over here we're seeing corrective price action. Not interested in EJ for the long. It looks good for the long, but again, I don't know. I really don't know about this pair, because you'd look at it more so like that. Maybe it comes in for a squeeze and then drops off, taps into that, and then goes. I think that would be more so a better gameplay for this pair. Like I said, it's not really my typical favorite structure as well, so I'll leave EJ out, but probably a push down, push back up, insurance entry right there. That would be your gameplay to go long. If you're going to take EJ, push down, breaks below here, pushes back up, gives you a continuation there, and that goes. And that would be pretty decent. You'd be playing the back end of the volume of the structure to then play that into the first high to see how it reacts to these areas. But you wouldn't be aggressive with management, you'd be loose. So most probably you'd be locking in a little bit of profit. Don't choke that trade with risk as well if you take it. But that's basically it. Then we have GA. I do like GA because we are in a clear run of momentum, impulse, correction, continuation, and now it just seems like there could be some momentum filled positions. I don't think we want to sleep on a pair like this actually. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait to see if some structure develops, and then I'll be interested to go long on that. So I'm going to put GA on that as well. GA looks stunning. I think it's going to be fairly easy to create our watch list this week, given the pairs that we have, because so far I'm looking at 10. Okay, maybe it might be a little bit more for refined, but I think Sunday market breakdown might come, Saturday market breakdown. We'll have to wait to see. Yeah, GP CAD's not looking the finest. I'm gonna pull this ray line over, and if we tap into this again and we push back in and retrace, I'll be interested in that. So I'll keep the daily there. What I'd be looking for really on this is I'm not looking for a long, I'm looking for a solid push back in, maybe a structure like that, and we can get in on something like that. And that's basically what I'll be looking at. Yeah, structure like that, that'll be good. Let's see. Yes, GBP Swiss, best one out of the Swiss pairs by far. You can see clear push down, deliberate price action. Give it some time, it needs to develop, but when that shapes up, you could have a decent structure in hand, right? If this, honestly, if this shapes up next week, turns into that, don't even hesitate on that. That is a banging trade. Even if that was a loss, I wouldn't even be sad, because you'd be trading it into that as your first target. You'd basically take the trade on the risk entry for sure. Even if there was an internal reduced risk, fair enough. If I could go more, I would. Call it 40 pips, why not? And then into that low, you've got about a 3-to-1. Then you'd be trading to the floodgates. So it's basically how I'd look at it. I'll put that on soft watch. GBP New Zealand. Ooh, I don't like GBP New Zealand much, to be honest. It's just corrective. You can convince yourself there's a good trade in there, but it is just corrective. You know, is it? It's just, yeah. Yeah, what is this? What am I trading here? Maybe. Interesting bit of price action there for sure, though. I think more likely, though, I'll be looking at that. That's interesting, but yeah, GBP New Zealand. Oh man, makes you want to get involved in this, but I just don't like structure. If I'm going to take it, I'd wait for that push, get something clear, deliberate all the way up here, and then I'll be gone for that. That's how I'll be looking to take it, but that won't shape up till late next week. I'll probably come back and have a look at it briefly, but it's not the one for me. GBP US dollar. I know this is obviously looking very nice as well. Yeah, I'm waiting for this to come back up for a 2-touch maybe. Yeah, let's just wait and see next week. If we, for any reason, pull up, near miss, come back in and do that, and then we get even an insurance entry, the risk entry would still be good. An insurance entry there, oh, I would be all over that trade. So GU as well. Oh man, I'm gonna have to really decide through these pairs. I want to put them all on watch. Let's see, GBP yen. GBP yen's looking good too. It's just the way it's formulating. Don't be surprised if it gets a bit more tricky, and this is one of the reasons why I was happy to opt out, because what I really wanted to see is, from when we pushed away from that section, I would have loved to see, I mean, we would always love to see these things, but clear deliberate price action, then we continued, and then even if it got a bit corrective over here, I wouldn't mind. But the fact of the matter is, my entry point is over here, right? And we're hovering around this area, but we're accumulating. So is this accumulating to come back in, to then come back up? And if that's the case, then I'm kind of sitting there like a headless chicken in the sense. So I don't want to be in a market where it's looking like it's really going to short on me. So I'd rather position myself in a market that looks like it's really going to short. I wouldn't short this, but I definitely wouldn't want to hold through a position like that, because I'm just asking to be taken out, so I'd look for a repositioning. But overall context, you'd set it and leave it, because when you go back and date collect on these and you take the position here, you tend to find that had you just left it, it usually plays out. That's why the strategy was formulated in the end anyway, because we could see that it does play out when you leave it. So once again, it's one of those ones, you're messing with probabilities by allowing that to play a psychological toll on you. New Zealand CAD. New Zealand CAD is actually really nice. Wow, that's really nice. We've wicked through it, weekly wick, daily full retrace, back in, 4 hour, 1 hour, continuation being formed. Comes back up, comes back down, comes back up. You get something like that. Yeah, why not? That looks good. That looks really good. I think... Did I? Ah. I kept EuroCAD on and I took New Zealand CAD off. And I didn't... Anyway. I'm just wondering because I said this was the best one on my watch list, but New Zealand CAD was by far way better than EuroCAD. Even so, it's really nice. They're both really good structures. CADs are looking caddy. See daily. Daily's looking okay on New Zealand Swiss actually, to be fair. I don't know if you guys can see this. Maybe the line chart would make it more visually clear. You basically got all of that, and then you basically come into here. I think it's I think these pairs are going to go short, really. I'm also looking at, you know, what's happened here. So we're now trading back below all of that. Yeah, you could look for shorts on these pairs, to be fair, New Zealand Swiss included. They're really good for shorts, that's the thing. So if that does shape up, how would I take it? Well, I think it would be very simple. I would look for that to pull back. Probably does that, to be honest. Seeing at how price is responding and moving, something like this wouldn't surprise me. Where you do that, and then it taps into like equally how it did this, where it taps into this area. You know, we tap into this area here. You know, we just do something silly, like we're not responding to those areas, we're responding to sort of that correction. So I'm not interested in New Zealand Swiss. I think it's more complicated than we anticipate. Definitely makes me think that I need to study nature more on this pair. So I'm going to mark that off as blue. And I'm going to come back and study it. But let's have a little look at New Zealand, US. Oh, okay. Interesting. This one, on the other hand, almost tapped into that area as well. It's a bit tricky, to be honest. I see these pairs and I'm thinking, it's got solid rejection. Look at that daily candle. I wouldn't be surprised on with these candles if they retraced, but I'm not looking for them to go long. I'm looking for them to go short. Oh, man. It's going to be a CAD and a US week for sure. Yeah, I don't know how that's going to shape up, to be fair. But could be the gameplay. Seems possible, right? Yeah, I'm gonna leave that as it is. I mean, perhaps I'll come and compare it. I'll reanalyze on that one because they're all fairly the same. Just looking for a continuation to go low. New Zealand yen. Ooh, okay. New Zealand yen is looking interesting because there's a long coming in here. This is what I was actually really looking forward to, and it's very convenient. Very convenient. Complicated. It's actually a difficult structure to decipher, but if we do get this and it comes in here and then we push up, get an insurance entry, New Zealand yen could actually be decent to trade. So I'd wait and see for that one. I'm going to mark that as blue, and I'm actually going to put an alert on this, but I'm going to move that one to this point here. I just want to see. I want to study this a little bit more, but USD CAD. Yeah, USD CAD, honestly, it's not been the easiest one to trade. Right now it's looking like it could become something a bit more messy as well. I'm just going to take it as it for what it is, and right now it's just a part of this, right? It's just a part of this whole corrective move to the upside. So really and truly, if I'm going to be looking for something, I don't want to be positioned in this sort of mess, because you're just asking for this to do that again, and then one time just kind of push, then do that again. You know, it's just right now the sequence of this is just off, really off. Especially if I go to the 4, like, yeah, there's some trades in there. You know, you get these runs, and I think that's where you can really make your money in these situations. Is this taps into an area, call it this area here, and then what happens is it pushes down from there, gives you that continuation, and then it gives you the sequence, and then you play that sequence until like here, and then it comes back up and it does the same thing again, and then you'd make your money off those. So you just basically be playing sequence between sequence, right? You'd be playing that, and then you'd be playing that, and then you'd be playing that. But it's very difficult to decipher because they're not really coming from anywhere specific. So we'd have to really study that. And if we do get a little bit granular, because I did actually look at this, as you can see here, and it's actually like a reverse look, right? Where you look at it from here, we tapped into this area, then equally this tapped into that, this taps into that correction over there, this taps into this correction over here, this taps into this correction. It's interesting, but once again, this is one of those things that I say about complex price, right? To make money on this, it's difficult because usually we don't catch it on the second time, we catch it on the third time, and then when it's on the third time, it's not always the cleanest. So it is what it is. The power of 3, let's see, D daily. Yeah, this looks good for a short as well. USD Swiss. Wow. The long is preferred, but right now, if we do drop off and we come back in and we create that, would you really hesitate on this? I don't think so. I think you'd be very interested in a position like that. So I'm going to be waiting for something like this as well. I think USD Swiss actually might have the goods. We're clearly below that line in the sand as well. I love how a lot of the time I say it's not going to be ready till next week, and then it's not ready till next week, and it looks sick, and that's just a really nice feeling in itself. But yeah, I wish you guys the same feeling, because it's cool. USD yen for the long for sure. How we're going to take it, I'm not too sure. I'm gonna not add USD yen on watch this week anyway, but something deliberate, and then we'd go long. With how we're looking at the other yen pairs, just be a bit careful, because this is just not looking like your most progressive as well. I don't think that's the gameplay there. I think really and truly we are looking for the longs. I think you get something like that, you could go long. Just with the other US pairs going short, actually, well, US CAD is a bit indecisive. US Swiss is going short at the moment, and then this one could go long, so we'll have to wait and see. And then USD ZAR. Now, I've always added USD ZAR, and even though it's an exotic pair, it's like my exception. And yeah, for the exception pair, it's not bad. You know, I've been watching this for some time, and in terms of a sequence point of view, it is corrective, but we've had sequence 1, 2, 3, probably drop off here, and that would be interesting if we got that. Create something clear, deliberate, and then we went for the next run to that point, and so forth. But yeah, guys, we've kind of run over an hour here, and I hope there was a lot of value in this video. I didn't go through the indices and commodities, so I can go through them briefly now, actually, before I go further. Yeah, Aussie US dollar, still looking for the high value area to be tapped into, not looking for anything else. JP25 we discussed. Germany 40, likewise Germany 30, just not the trade just yet. I think we could go short before we go long, which is nice because got US 30 involved as well. Looking at that as just one big correction in itself. UK 100 looks like it could really tank as well, but we don't know for certain. Just gonna size that one. we'd look at that, but that's very deliberate. Yeah, it could be really well positioned for shorts. We just have to wait and see. Honestly, I couldn't say that right now this is the best pair to be trading because there's no close structure. But in terms of where it's coming from, if we get a clear push and we create clear deliberate price action again, I wouldn't say hesitate on that. I'd say be aware, but it's looking banging. US 500 high value area. If it shorts, it shorts. We're clearing expanding, which can work as a continuation or a reversal in these areas. More than likely, it's the S&P 500. It could go long, but equally, this could really just tank as well, and we could be looking at a larger range play, so that could be good. US 30, I covered. Obviously, I am currently in a short position, locked in around about 1%, so we're looking pretty okay with that position. We'll see how that shapes up. US 100, likewise with the US 500. If they go, they go. If not, we look at continuation, but right now we just have to be patient and see what happens. These other ones I was looking at, I always scan through them, but I just don't trade them. I think the NL25 looks interesting, kind of similar to S&P 500, but yeah, I'm not interested in any of those. Commodities, gold, I wish I had more time, but I'm not going to cover this one too much. But yeah, there was a lot more to it, but yeah, that was interesting how that sold. Definitely something that once I analyzed it very deeply, I kind of realized that there was multiple signals for this to actually play, but it's fine. It is what it is. Gold's looking good. Continuation down here would be perfect for more continuation to the downside. It would be a suppression of all of this would be in here as well. So we'd see a continuation in here to then go low. I don't anticipate it being very clean, so just be on your A game with a position like that, and definitely be on your management because how we've pushed away. Silver, absolute fire, this pair. I am a big silver fan, to be fair, so I'm always going to probably leave the flame because the flame is where it's at. But yeah, so silver's looking nice. It's not looking like my typical short, I'll be honest with you. I think it's still kind of similar to some other pairs we're seeing where it's doing this, but shorts can begin like that. We're now pushing back in below the previous all-time high, and we just need to kind of see how price moves. So patience is everything with silver. Natural gas, it was looking good for a potential short in these areas. We didn't get a follow through. Fortunately, saved myself from a loss. Was basically looking for that to follow through, give me continuation and go. So we didn't get the continuation and it pulled back, which is fine. WTI, US oil, I had this position, on, and anyway, I think I put that in the YouTube video previously, but yeah, basically just waiting patiently now. Perhaps what's happening is we're retesting the back end of this before we go short, so just being aware of that this is now just kind of doing its thing. If it comes in here, pushes down, gives you continuation here. It's a bit more high risk, yeah, but there could be potential there because you're basically playing the retest. Just to kind of be aware of the area you're trading. It wouldn't be a 4-hour structure, it'd be a 1 hour that I'll be looking at, but I've just shown you on the 4 so you can see everything to the left. Palladium, Palladium's one that I was actually going to take a trade on, but I didn't in the end just because of many variables, but it was there. It just was not my typical action. But yeah, there was a short for this and then playing that into the low, but it's nice. Platinum as well. Platinum was a stunning one, obviously. I didn't get the entry because I wasn't looking for this, and I didn't quite get it in the end. So I had that and I had this. Right, I thought we come back up here, I get the short. We come to the override, I get the short. We didn't get it, but we did get the internal just within it right there. And yeah, it just happened to be the one that went, and then when it was down here I didn't want to take that trade. Same thing happened again, but at the end of the day, it's nice to see it play. I could have taken the trade. It's just when I saw it, I was probably about here, and it would have been around about 8 pips. Oh, 8 pips would have been decent as well. I didn't even size up the position, but yeah, I'd be running around about 5% on it. But you know what? Shows once again another level of abundance, and that would have been over a course of few days. Yeah, literally about 13 hours I would have been in that trade. I would have waited for it around about 2 days, so 3 days. And then copper's stunning. There was that trade, and then this area here, platinum. Oh, gosh, yeah, honestly, they're great pairs, absolutely great pairs. And I'll just finalize it with a BTC. Why not? BTC is still hovering in that area. I think it's still going long. It's just obviously stalling before it makes its move. Wrong tool. If I put this one on here, you can see that we tapped into the lows and we're just making our way up. This is corrective, so I wouldn't be surprised if this just becomes a long range and we play this range for a longer period of time, where we do that and then we come back into these areas and we do that. That would be really cool. Not for long-term holders, but for people who just want to trade it. But yeah, more than likely we'll come in low from here. We're going to possibly create a floor, do that, and then just kind of trickle and make our way, and then at some point just go. Right now it's difficult to anticipate it from a 4-hour perspective, but from a daily you can see it's very clear as day. We've created the floor down here, 2 touches, we've pushed away, impulse, correction, impulse. We are in the corrective phase, and then we'll get the next phase, which is an impulsive phase. And with that impulsive phase, we may see ourselves push through this, be at all-time highs, trading around about 78, 79, or even 76, around about that area, and we'll take it from there. So guys, that basically summarizes the whole video. I hope you found a lot of value in this video. If you have any questions or anything, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Just to summarize the pairs that I did kind of filter through, it was these. Now I've only got 15 pairs here, so more than likely 1 or 2 or 3 of them will be filtered out, but I'll put that into my Sunday market breakdown video and I will post that shortly. So guys, catch you tomorrow. Have a great day, have a great weekend, and I will catch you guys in the next one.